Welcome to the Yummy Yummy Kitchen. So this is gonna be our first recipe that we do together. We just wanted to start off with something really easy. So we just wanted to do a really quick and simple recipe that we've been using for homemade dog food for our dogs. So we had a little bit of a scare with the dog food that we were using. So before we were buying them kind of pre-made dog food, and we were mixing in wet food with dry food. And then they had this one night where it seemed to make them really sick. And then we kind of looked into it, and there's all of these horror stories about, people whose dogs have gotten sick from the food that they've purchased in the supermarket or the pet store or whatever it is. And whilst I appreciate that they do their best with, quality control and things like that, you never know what's going into those products. That really scared us because our dogs are really small and they're, part of the family. And we thought, why wouldn't we just make their food for them so that we know exactly what goes into it? So we did a little bit of research, and we struck upon a couple different things that have worked really well for our dogs. So one of our dogs is allergic to chicken and beef, so it really limits what she can eat. So our dog food is based on kangaroo, but obviously you can switch that out for any protein. And this recipe is really simple. It only takes about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ingredients. And the prep time is maybe like 10 or 15 minutes. And then I pop it into a pressure cooker. It's done in an hour, and then it's ready to go. And then it's enough to serve 2 small Chihuahuas for a week who are eating twice a day. So that's kind of the story behind this. The ingredients that we're gonna put into it, just based on some research around, what is good for dogs and what you should be giving them. So we've got, the fresh kangaroo mints. So they're a little bit spoiled. This is, human quality food. So this we've purchased at the grocery store. Obviously in the US, kangaroo meat is a little bit harder to come by, but in Australia, they just sell this at the grocery store.
What can you use as an alternative?
You could use beef as an alternative. You could use chicken, really any kind of protein that you want to give your dogs. I think that if you're feeding them, human grade food and you're cooking it for them, you really can't go wrong. This is really good because it's really low in fat. So it's 98% fat free, and it's a really good source of protein and iron. So it's really good for dogs. I've also heard that lamb is good for dogs, as well as rabbit, and some of those leaner, kind of gamier, more wild meats are better for dogs than, things that have a lot of fat or things like that. But I'm not a vet. That's just what I've heard. So we've got the kangaroo here. So that's kind of the major source of protein that gets mixed into it. We've got 2 zucchinis. So these are kind of portions based on, how much we need to make for the dogs for a week. I've got 4 carrots. Depending on the size of these carrots, I kind of fluctuate between 4 and 5 carrots. And I just kind of eyeball it and make a guess. And then I've got 2 sweet potatoes. And then they've got their own little sushi rice. So essentially what this ends up being is almost like a porridge. And then we mix the dry food into their dog food when we serve it to them. So that's kind of everything. And then the tools that you need is, I've just got a little bowl, and this is really to capture the vegetables as I chop them up and prepare them. Before they go into the pressure cooker, I've got a chopping board. I've got a knife. And my husband usually doesn't trust me with these knives, but I'm gonna keep my fingers tucked, maybe. And then I've got the scraper thing.
Peeler.
The peeler. And then I've got the pressure cooker. So I'm gonna use the pressure cooker on the sear setting to essentially cook the kangaroo mince up front. And then I'll switch that off once it's been cooked. I'll be chopping up the vegetables, I'll add them in, I'll add in the rice, and then I'll add some water, and then it's pretty much good to go. It's really, really simple. So what I've just done is set it to a sear option. I'm just gonna push start, and now it's preheating. Once it starts counting down, I know that it's heated up, and then I'll just pop this in there and actually start searing it, which reminds me I need a stirrer.
A wooden spoon.
A wooden spoon. It's my husband behind the camera correcting me and watching me wave the knife around, being nervous.
Yes.
Is that right, Bob? Is that right?
Huh?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're making me nervous. So I don't have good knife skills, obviously. Just, I get by. We don't need your sound effects, Bob. We don't need your sound effects. Makes me nervous. Is there like an easier way to cut these zucchinis? Or is this the best way?
Generally, you try and make it as flat as possible. And you cut so it's well there.
Alright. So I've cut it down the center, and then I've put like the two halves. So they're like this size. It's hard to tell, but it doesn't really matter. Just don't do them too small. When we serve them, generally they get really soft because they're zucchinis and they break down in the pressure cooker. And then we just kind of mash them up with the spoon, and then that allows us to kind of mix it into the rice porridge. I'm actually going to skin them, peel them into these, rough circles. I'm not too sure about cutting this little piece, so that's done. This might be why I need 4 to 5 carrots. How am I doing, Bob?
Focus on what you do.
This is ready, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna sear this.
Put any oil in there?
I don't put any oil in. I don't like to add any extra things that I don't need to add. So using the sear function, we're just gonna cook this up a little bit. Is there a good way to keep carrots from running away from you as you're cutting them? Or is it just the nature of their shape? This is actually kind of soothing, the peeling of these potatoes. Oh, I don't really know that much about potatoes, other than one time we had a worm farm, and you were meant to just put compost in the worm farm, and then Michael put potatoes in the worm farm, and they grew. And so Michael harvested these like baby potatoes from the worm farm. But then we were too scared to eat them because we didn't know if we were gonna get poisoned or something. Oh yeah, it's looking really good. The mince gets easier to break up once it's actually like a little bit more cooked. It's harder to break up when it's raw. So as it cooks, I just like to go in there and jab, jab, jab with my wooden spoon and break it up a bit. And then that just makes it easier to mix it through the porridge once it's done. And I'm actually just gonna, so I just take these vegetables that we've just prepared, and I'm just gonna dump it in here. Because it's all gonna go into the same place anyway. And then that gives me space to now cut up my potato. Here's one of the children now. She can smell her food cooking. Kind of chop it up into these size pieces. It's a bit hard. Ooh. I know people who are watching this video are going to be cringing at this point. So obviously this is a very simple recipe because even I can make it. Should I tuck my fingers?
I'm not saying anything.
But like I said, this is a very, very simple recipe with very little prep that's required, so anyone can do it. I'm just gonna keep dumping these in. Just making sure that they are distributed. So this is actually really close to the top, so I may actually not need the second sweet potato because these are just so big. So that's kind of what it looks like. So all the kangaroo mince is at the bottom, and then you've got all your vegetables on top of that. I'm just gonna roughly pour in a cup. It might be a little bit more than a cup. So I've had to unfortunately learn through multiple iterations of doing this, but never fill your pressure cooker to the max line, because what will happen is when the pressure is released as steam, you will just get a whole bunch of rice porridge spurting out of your pressure cooker onto your onto your cabinets and your bench tops. All right, so I'm just gonna lock this up. Put this little lid on. And this is ready to go. So I'm just gonna put it onto pressure cooker, select. The setting that I always use for this is casserole, and that gives it the highest amount of pressure over an hour. And I'm just gonna push start, and then that's it. So that's all the prep, that's all you gotta do. You let it cook in the pressure cooker. It's gonna take the time it needs to take. Roughly, it's like an hour and 30 minutes, I think. So there's like preheating. It says an hour, but it's preheating for like 20 or 30 minutes. And then it starts to count down on the hour. It will alert us when it's done, and then I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so we're back. The food just finished cooking. So pretty much what I do to prep it, and this is the same routine for every meal once the porridge is done, is, well, clearly I wouldn't have this every time, but what happens here. So I've got the porridge nice and steamy. Everything looks really good. So what I do is I just give it a quick mix because I want to make sure that I'm distributing everything equally throughout the porridge. So you'll remember that when we first closed the lid on this, it was kind of stacked because I had the mince at the bottom, and then I kind of just dumped the vegetables in the order that I'd prepared them. So I just want to give it a good stir and make sure that all of the meat and all of the veggies are kind of consistent through the porridge. And you can see it's really steamy, and you can also see from the color of the vegetables themselves that, you know, they're probably quite soft. So it looks really good. So this is kind of what you're gonna end up with, this kind of rice porridge with some meat mixed through it. So I'll just take I prep the amount that I need for both pepi and ballo in one go. So usually it's about 2 scoopfuls. And then what you end up with is this kind of rice porridge situation here. So obviously the first time you make this, it's way too hot to give them right out of the box. So, you know, you have to let it cool down, but every time thereafter, because you're storing this in the fridge, essentially what you would do is you would take out the amount that you need. I generally put it into a microwavable safe bowl, and I'll put it into the microwave for about 30 seconds. And that just gives it enough warmth so that it's not like super cold. I just, you know, just like us, I don't think that feels good in the tummy. And then what I'll do is I'll, you know, pop this into a dog bowl, and then we feed them Nature's Gift semi-moist, soft and chewy kangaroo dry food. So what I'll do is I'll generally put, you know, half of this into one of their bowls, and then I'll follow up with, you know, my handful. So it's like kind of a small handful. And then I'll kind of distribute about this much dry food. So half and half will go into Pepi's bowl, and then half will go into Ballo's bowl. And then that's it. And then I serve them, and that's their breakfast and their dinner. So that's our super easy to make, you know, 15-minute dog food. It's really good for them. It takes you, you know, 15 minutes to prep. The pressure cooker will cook it all for you, and this will feed them for a week. They love it, and they seem to be really active and really healthy, and it's really made a difference in their coats. We can already see it. So yeah, I really recommend that you guys give this a try. I think that your dogs will thank you.
You gonna eat some?
No, I'm not gonna eat some.